joining us here today. Just some house rules before we start. I'd request all of you to please be on mute. Also, if you could turn off your cameras, except of course the speakers. You can send your questions through the chat at all times. Please select everyone and not the speakers. So our moderator will pick up on the questions and take them. Okay, let's see, I can move the slides. And just for everyone's information, the session will be recorded and this will be posted on the CoreNet Global website. And this is accessible by members alone. So if you're not a member, perhaps that's something to consider as well. Introducing myself, my name is Richa Singh. I work for Ericsson and I am the chair for the Middle East chapter at CoreNet Global. As always, a big thank you to all our sponsors who have supported us, who have been supporting us all through these very different and sometimes even difficult times that we're currently in. So a big thank you to Summertown, JLL, Fortin Tech, Herman Miller, Interface, Gensler, Blue House Group, Technion, The Furniture Practice, and Human Space. We need your continued support, and you have been absolutely phenomenal providing us that support. So big thanks again. Moving on to our splendid committee. This is the team at CoreNet Middle East chapter that works hard. Not everyone is, I mean, especially these days, you don't get to see everybody, unfortunately, but you know, the entire team is very, very involved in different areas. Please just take a look at the names, and I suppose you'd know most of them. And feel free to reach out to any one of us at any time. We're all here, rather eager to hear from you. In terms of our upcoming programs and events, I have talked about this earlier, that we are trying to really work through different formats and different types of content to bring the best to the Middle East chapter. So there's plenty that is in the works. The one that is set is on the 27th of October after this one, which is a panel on wellness, which is going to be pretty exciting as well. You will hear, of course, more on the other events too. As far as the global summits are concerned, the AMER summit is planned in Berlin for January. And as far as I know, that is still the plan. And fingers crossed that it does go ahead. So keep looking at follow the CoreNet news and the Middle East chapter and see what's coming up. With that, we have a very exciting panel today. A phenomenal set of corporate real estate executives who are joining us from across the globe to really talk about the workplace world with and after COVID-19. So a big thank you to all of you for joining us here in the Middle East today, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you. And moderating this panel, this roundtable, is Nishar Fatema. She is a director of Global Client Solutions for Space Matrix. She's based out of New York currently, and previously she has lived and worked in Singapore, in India, in Germany, in Iran. So truly a global citizen, I'd say. Nishar has also been very active on the CoreNet circuit, actually. She has presented at the global summits in North America as well as Europe. So we're very happy to have you join us today here, Nishar, and very keen to hear the panel's views as you explore this rather complex topic with them. So very excited and looking forward to this discussion, and big thank you for joining us today. So over to you, Nishar.
Thank you very much, Richa, for setting a fantastic stage for us. I wanted to take a moment to thank you all the sponsors and organizers for today's event. So let's get started. Today, we all are joining from different parts of the world, and especially to our global panel from San Francisco, New York, Dublin, and Dubai. So thanks to each of you panelists, especially Tonya waking up at 5 a.m. for us. So and even Michael for early for you in New York as well. So I don't want to take much time here. Just want to quick directly into our introduction. So let's get started on learning more about each of the panelists by the way of introduction from themselves as well, because I think they would be able to share what have been their decorated careers and what role they played in their task force for the COVID pandemic as well. So why don't we start with Michael? Michael, shall we start with you? Oh, can't hear you, Michael. No, still no. Why don't we go to Tonya and then we'll come back to Michael?
Hi, everybody. Tonya Thornburgh. I've been with ServiceNow for about 3 years, just about 3 years, and initially was overseeing our global planning and design and our project management office for delivering all of our real estate. About a week before we sent everybody home from COVID, I got asked to take over as Director of Operations for the Americas, and then had the lovely task of kind of spearheading our global alignment on our efforts around return to workplace. So nothing like jumping in and going deep really quick. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Jonathan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jonathan Parks. I currently work for Aptiv Global Operations, headquartered out of Dublin. We're a global automotive supplier around the world with about 370, 380 locations. I joined about 15 months ago to head up the global construction and workplace strategy for the organization. And the workplace strategy has since manifested itself into a COVID-19 strategy, which we continue to work through to this day as the virus changes. Thank you.
Perfect. How about you, Isra? Should we go with yours?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Estravanosco. I'm leading all the real estate activities for the region for HSBC. It's been almost 15 years in HSBC. I'm architect by profession. And in the last 5 years, I spent here in Minat in Dubai. For COVID, I also have another responsibility in Group HSBC, looking at business partnering related activities for global HSBC, and we do a lot of work on COVID related prep and other works right now.
Fantastic. Michael, can we have yours? Is the voice back? No, we still can't hear you. I think we had the similar problem with Tonya. So let me just introduce Michael while we try to fix the audio. He's been with JP Morgan for 9 years now, managing 45 million square feet portfolio with 456 locations, and spearheading all the global team with lots of tasks, which we would love to hear from you. I hope the audio gets fixed real soon. So let's kickstart with that. I mean, just basis of hearing all the introductions from our panelists, they've been extremely humble. They are doing a lot more than what we have been hearing right now. And as we go through all the questions and discussions, you would know what kind of a deep dive they have in and role they have in the pandemic as well. I think as we navigate through the virtual roundtable discussion today, to simplify this session, I have divided this under 3 main pillars of the workplace, which we all are very well versed with, which is more people, place, and technology. And under each section, the questions will be posted with regards to that particular section. So people being the most, I would say, impacted psychologically and physically as well. We would start with people section and go to the place and then to the technology aspect. I think this pandemic, among the first and foremost human tragedy that has played out across the globe, and to say the least, we are all experiencing the same kind of emotions, right? So what has been the biggest challenge in managing the experience of your workforce, and how the engagement continuity has been ensured? And Tonya, if we could go to you directly to answer that one, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, I think some of our biggest challenges have just been kind of the uncertainty and the unpredictability of how long this will last. I think when we first sent people home, they thought maybe it'd be a couple of weeks, right? And then it was, okay, now it's going to be a couple of months. And now, right, obviously a lot of people are looking to extend work from home until, through next year. So we also just kind of realized that everybody's situation is really kind of unique to themselves. So here at ServiceNow, we kind of really focused on, people first, really making sure we had frequent, transparent communication, continuing to survey our workforce to understand kind of people's concerns, their challenges, and really putting the right programs in place to support them. Hosting a ton of virtual events. I'm sure everybody's kind of figured out how you take all the stuff you've been doing in office and how do you get that to people virtually, and really focusing on how we're bringing people together, not just around work, but around social aspects, around connecting, but also including their families, right? Really looking at fitness sessions, magic shows, art contests, cooking sessions, just different demonstrations like that, story time, happy hours, all these different ways that we can involve people on many, many different levels and really just try to meet people where they are and accept them in their current situations.
That's fantastic. Jonathan, do you want to share your thoughts from your organization's perspective, what Aptiv was doing and what have been the thought around?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember it well, actually. The schools in Ireland closed on the 12th of March, and on the 13th, I actually headed back to the UK with my family to have a short temporary break for Easter and remain still in the UK at the moment in time, 6 months later. I think sending a lot of people home very rapidly within an organisation. So we kind of split our group into two, hourly rated employees and then the knowledge workers that tend to be salaried employees. So out of about 150,000 people, we've got about 40,000 that typically work from an office every day. So the challenges sending people home immediately was actually twofold. First of all, from a real estate perspective, it was fairly simple. The office was empty and we could do any maintenance works that we needed to do. But, the second piece was the IT element, and we weren't prepared from an IT perspective. We were still using Skype for Business, which anybody use it on a regular basis at best is acceptable, but if you start adding video and large amounts of occupancy, it just starts to become very slow. So we had to pivot away from Skype into MS Teams, so that added some complexity with people working at home. And secondly, I'd spent the last 2 years working at home, so for me it was just emptying the box of all the monitors and all the equipment and just setting back up again as if nothing had happened. But a lot of people, what we found was it was a new experience, and obviously with the children at home and everybody now co-locating in the same space, I think it was a learning challenge for everybody from a mental perspective, and there was no line of delimitation anymore. And I know myself and you and Nishar had spoke about this, in that you found yourself working at 7 in the morning and you found yourself still touching the computer at 10 o'clock at night because there was an email that you could respond to. So having that family time, some people have managed to navigate quite successfully around it and may have an evening meal with the family and put the kids to bed and then go and do a couple of extra hours in the evening. So I think for me, from a people perspective, it was just thrown into the unknown, and people after 6 months, you can start seeing them get into a pattern of work, which may not be beneficial in the long term.
Thank you, John. I think, Isra, when you and I spoke, there was I think just on that point which Jonathan mentioned about identifying the emotions and managing the emotions at different levels. Many organizations have gathered the results of their global workforce surveys, and in our conversation earlier, you mentioned that you had a very unique findings around how female and mothers are thinking versus how other age of work group is thinking about working from home, and this whole new experiment which globally we are playing around. So if you could share some thoughts with our audience today, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So HSBC is a very big organization and have lots of footprints in 77 countries almost. So that's why we were interestingly lucky to learn from each other from east to west. So all experience shared in a very constant manner for us to able to really actually respond from one to another. The one thing, so we, of course, conveyed so much survey to understand what's going on in people level or in organizational level in different countries or cultures. What we found was interesting. The most impacted, I believe, population in our organization was a female workforce, because they stated in different surveys that, so although they have full end-to-end day routines at work, they also have some core household issues they need to deal with, either childcare or any kind of other things at home. So that was a little bit more difficult for this workforce. So it was interesting for us to really actually find this and really address how we can help that workforce to be able to create more flexibility on working hours, or on helping by changing the workload from one to another, etc. So that was an interesting finding.
Thank you, Isra. I just want to take a pause for a minute to see if we have Michael with us now, because it would be sad to not be able to hear your thoughts, Michael.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. And I don't think so whether I've done justice to your introduction. I would love you to share a little bit about what you do and what was your role in the task force, and then we'll jump to the question, which I have it ready for you.
Beautiful. That's fine. Everyone, it's nice to be here. I work for JP Morgan, and I lead their corporate office location portfolio all over the world. Nishar, you did a lovely job introducing me. So that's me. Nice to meet you all.
All right. Welcome to the panel, Michael. I know, Michael, you are a huge advocate of compassion. When we are talking about people, that becomes a huge point of discussion. And to cultivate psychological safety in our people were some of the biggest challenges during these times, right? So how do you ensure to create and maintain that culture that values compassion, inclusion, and even the social harmony for that matter, while we are working remotely and not physically with each other?
Well, I think frankly, the resolution, the ultimate resolution to a lot of the things we've been facing this year is about compassion and empathy for others. How we behave is about respect for others. Whether you wear a mask is about respect for others. Whether you avoid gatherings is respect for others. And so in a corporate setting, you know, people are used to the company doing everything for them. We're going to clean, we're going to organize, we're going to restock the shelves, we're going to do all the things regardless of how you behave in terms of cleanliness and hygiene. Compassion and empathy is also people in a workplace behaving a little bit differently, being respectful of one another, not assuming that, well, the cleaner wiped down my desk, so you know what, if I don't like how it's done, I'll just call real estate and they'll do it again. No, you should take a wipe yourself and wipe things down. So the way we look at it is that you can have a couple of thousand cleaners that clean a portfolio and disinfect. But if every single person in a company took it upon themselves to do a little bit, well, then the workplace would be safer. It would be better. It would be cleaner. When someone touches a telepresence keypad to dial up a meeting, rather than assuming someone's going to wipe it down that night, they should do it so that the next person comes in and it's clean. You know, I have a philosophy that if I think there's 7.8 billion people in the world, I think, something like that, all over the world. If every person picked up one piece of garbage every day and put it where it's supposed to be, there would be 7.8 billion pieces of garbage that are no longer on the ground, in the ocean, on our beaches. We can do great things if we work together, and this crisis is really putting that to a test.
Very, very sensitive topic, Michael, and thank you very much for bringing that awareness to. I think that also boils down somewhere to the communication aspect, right? That how you communicate with your employee, whether they are with you or they are working remotely. So every organizations have that unique way of communicating to their workforce. So I would love to hear from John how this pandemic has redefined the way your organization communicates with your workforce, And if you could state some examples, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, Nishar. So when we looked at the workplace guidelines and standards and we started to look at how we communicate with employees, there was kind of two aspects to that. One of them was through SurveyMonkey or traditional methods of communicating with employees and asking them, how they feel about the organisation and what we're doing and collecting that data and doing something with it and actioning it. The other side was how do we communicate with people that are a remote workforce? How do we keep people engaged from that perspective? And then the third one was when we brought people, or if we ever bring people back in the office, how do we continue communicating with those employees in a similar fashion so that wherever they are around the world, and if we have those blended workforces in the future, and I'm sure we'll get on to that in the future conversation, how do we continue that single channel mindset? So we already have something called Go Aptiv, which is a communication tool that our internal comms team work on, and that is a collection of all Aptiv communications in one portal effectively. It's a bit like Twitter, and it allows people to flick through subjects that are of interest to those people. So we've got that channel there. On a weekly basis, we do have, through our HR organisation, a weekly health and wellbeing survey where people can answer, and again understanding the mental health and also the physical health of people and whatever requirements they have. So it's very much been an open channel on communicating and being able to ask for help if you need that help as well from our other global functions, not just real estate. Going forward, the way we design our workplaces, which is where I sit in particular, we are designing much more around communication and making sure that we use IP communication technology so that we can push content directly to different groups of people in different buildings across the world, and that they get that consistent communication, not only so that you've kind of got multiple channels there, and it's almost bringing communication to how people want to access and consume that communication. So we have video, we have written documentation, we have things that are displayed in the workplace through digital signage, and it allows people to access that content in a way that they feel fit to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, John. I think, Tonya, I would love to pick your brain on some of the questions which many of us do not have answers for at this point, which is more on how do we determine the right time for employees to return to work, right? Right now, it's been 5-6 months, we are in the pandemic, but we are still thinking about how many workforce to be returning at this point, only critical staff to be coming in the office. So how do we determine that and how do we protect for those who are coming to the office today and make sure that they feel safe?
Yeah, I think really kind of that right time is going to be different for every company and really different for every individual. We're kind of evaluating readiness across kind of 3 domains, right? Community, people, and then workplace. So we've, got our playbook like everybody else, and we really kind of developed these stage gates that help guide us through our process of, first of all, is it safe, right? Are the government restrictions lifted? Do we have public, is there no public or civil unrest? Do we have public transportation? Do we have emergency services in place, right? Is it just safe for people to be out and about in general? And then we basically then go into that next place of, are the people ready, right? And so doing that, we're sending out a survey that just kind of gauges, hey, are you ready to return? No pressure, choice is yours. But we're thinking of opening the office again. We've heard, little bits here and there, and we want to know what you think. And if people say no, end of survey, no problem. If people say yes, then we ask a series of other questions to try to understand the why behind what they're ready to do. But part of that is really educating them on what the experience is like, right? And really being open and honest that those that are first to return to the workplace, you're not returning to the same friendly, happy workplace that you were at before. Right? It's really not awesome. There aren't a lot of services. You're still very much alone. But also just trying to understand what is it that people are missing, right? What is it that they need? Is it a technology issue? Is it a collaboration issue? And of the people we've been surveying, what we're finding is those that want to come home or return back to workplace are their biggest issues. They just kind of miss the office, which makes us feel good. We were doing something right in the first place. But the other one is collaboration, right? And though we're collaborating right now, it's just not the same as being in person. Again, what we want to make sure we're doing is really educating our end users, that we're also educating them, as Jonathan mentioned, or as Michael mentioned earlier, on their role in keeping each other safe and us maintaining a healthy workplace, right? This isn't just something that workplace services can do themselves. And it's not just security's job, right? It's everybody's job, and everybody needs to participate. And as Michael said, it's not about just me, but it's about thinking about other people, thinking about their extended families. So we've been doing a lot of communication, like Jonathan said, in many, many different ways, because people receive information differently, educating and, really asking those questions and really ensuring that we're having good calls with our leadership and reminding them of their actions set the example for people, and that we really want to make sure we're promoting that employee choice as to where the best place for them to work and do their best work is. We are good, talented adults, right? We've got to trust them, and we've got to build that culture of trust in order for how we're going to work in the future to really work effectively.
Absolutely. You actually created a perfect bridge for me to jump onto the next section, because when you talk about collaboration, the space becomes extremely important as well, right? The physical meeting and coming together as a team. My next question would be more on a bigger picture when we are talking about now place, and we are in the second section regarding the portfolio optimization, right? Since about more than half of all the organization workforce is remote working still, even today, after 6 months of being in the pandemic, I'm sure companies are looking into optimizing and either downsizing or expanding depending on their business needs. Isra, I would love to hear from you on what HSBC is thinking, and what are your thoughts or recommendations for other organizations as well.
Yeah, so I think COVID-19 is the biggest change agent for real estate sector. I see not only other sectors as well, but I mean, one of the biggest impact into our sector. And we definitely need to think about the future purpose of the workplace. So that's really actually important, which we are thinking a lot on that as company. We're working with our partners to really actually come up with different ideas for the future projections, the scope and all the other stuff. Of course, we're looking at our current portfolio all the time. This is BAU for us. So we always looking at any optimization works, but we shouldn't also forget that. So we're in the transition period of this change. So it's not ended yet. We don't even know what will be the post-COVID situation. So that's why we're focusing more on no regret actions in terms of spend, in terms of portfolio related activities first. The second one is reflection. So what we need for future as an organization, as a office related activities. We need to determine first all these needs. So these are coming up now because we are not yet back to the office. So that's why we just need to experience what will be the office, let's say, transition period office behavior look like. What is the need for people in this period? Then we can build up all the future related activities. But of course, yes, we are working on increasing the desk sharing ratio in the office in order to look at the office portfolio optimization activities. We're looking for how we can shape our workforce with different work styles in every business need under HSBC, personas, what they need from technology, what they need from HR, from what they need from a real estate team. So these are all under, I believe, preparation and under cooking process, let me say that way. So it is early to say a little bit more some certain things.
Thank you, Isra. John, do you want to throw some light on the same question from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from an Aptiv perspective, our key strategies around workplace was always healthy, supporting improving individual well-being at work, efficient, making good use of information, space and time, effective, enabling people to do their work well, and engaging, desirable destination that looks and feels like a great place to work. So if you kind of think about those 4 key strategies that we've built into our playbook, and the healthy element is how you keep people safe at work, and how do you encourage people back into the office where they need to work from there and do so in a safe place. You know, for my whole career, and I'm sure everybody else will agree on this call, that, you know, real estate has been about optimization and maximizing the amount of people in the office at one time to maximize the headcount per square foot. And that metric, or traditional metric, has kind of been thrown out the door, because effectively you're trying now to achieve 2 and 3 times the metrics you were working with in February this year. So, you know, for us, it's been about temporarily restricting people in our offices, and we kind of design ours around the neighborhood choice environment. So for us, it's worked very well, that particular flexible way of working, in that we can reconfigure a lot of the estate, and do, you know, bring less people into more space, and naturally just close off those in order to enable people back there. And then ultimately educating people on what we do in the office and why we do it, from cleaning regimes down to filtered air conditioning, the fresh air, you know, and educate people on why it is appropriate to come back into the office and make the environments as safe as possible. Again, I think the key place is going to be, it's blended. People are going to be coming into the office far less often and going to be working at home far more often than they traditionally have done. So we're already seeing natural patterns in the corporate headquarters I work in, where people typically coming in 2 days a week and working at home 3 days a week. Now in Dublin, it's typical that people access quite large amounts of public transport, where I can travel in a car on my own. Not very good for the environment, but it means I'm safe commuting to and from work, which is rather selfish. So we need to be aware that, you know, people are having to do different ways to get into work at the same time as well. So yeah, thanks, Nishar.
Absolutely. And I think none of us were ready for this shakeup of this level to begin with, right? So the whole operational recovery became very, very important when we started coming back. I would love to take the discussion a little bit towards more focused on workplace and how future-proofing, what we are thinking in terms of future-proofing and distributed workplace. Michael, could you share a little bit about your thoughts on how the future of distributed workplace is going to look like?
Well, I think it was distributed before this crisis. It's just now that people are forced to distribute is the difference. It's first it was voluntary, which is why those of us who do real estate would often say, like, where is everybody? Why are our floors half empty? Why do we carry natural vacancy levels every day? It's because people were already distributed voluntarily. Now that they're forced, I think we have a goal. The crisis is going on and on and on. The health toll, the death toll is all horrible, but there is one silver lining from a real estate perspective, is that we have a golden opportunity to actually get after that layer of vacancy that permeated all of our portfolios, and try to reposition it so that, you know, getting out of buildings we shouldn't be in to begin with. Consolidating our workforce so that when they do start to return in greater numbers, they're more consolidated, closer together. There's better energy in the spaces. Meanwhile, the real estate folks like us will be quietly disposing of assets and spaces that we actually don't need in our portfolios any longer, which were harder to do before the crisis hit because we had people still showing up. So I think, you know, I'm an optimist about this stuff, but I think that the workplace will be different. And I think that those who don't take this opportunity and they assume what people had in the past or what they're going to have in the future, and it will be a little bit weirder because there'll be less people and they'll be like kind of like spread around various locations, and cultures and energy will suffer because of it. If you don't take the opportunity now to consolidate and rethink your workforce and where they are and how they get back together once people are healthy and safe again.
Fantastic. Very well said. I would have asked the same question to Tonya, but I want to twist it a little bit because I know you have a knack for design along with having a holistic view of the portfolio. Just taking, again, stretch on the future proofing of your workplace. how would you prepare for the possibility of such coronavirus or even something else which we don't know, kind of a breakouts in your future, in your workplace in future, and any specific design intent which could be more like a timeless for these kind of pandemics, and we can proof our workplaces. If you could share any of those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, we've all gone through a rapid education on this, and we all now have probably more playbooks and SOPs and processes documented than we had before. I think, you know, if we look at silver linings, as Michael said, I'm also always quite looking at the positives of the world. I think a lot of us were having these discussions and trying to get where we were going anyway, right? To get here, this just kind of forces us to get there quicker. You know, I think again, a lot of it is around behaviors, right? So, and we have to get people to understand those new behaviors and take that responsibility on. We were very fortunate in the way we're designing our workspaces. All of our spaces almost kind of naturally give us 6 feet of separation to begin with, right? And that's now this new number people are comfortable with here in the U.S. You know, 3 meters or whatever elsewhere in the world. But I think, again, it is around, for us, it's less around place and it's more around the people. And if we get the people aspect right, and if we really understand what distributed working means for ServiceNow, and we get alignment across leadership, that we really focus on culture, building trust, and really becoming performance oriented in how we manage people, I think is what's going to allow us to be successful. And as Ezra said, we have multiple, you know, kind of bell curves to still go through as people are adjusting. Because there's a lot of people out there that haven't really had a true work from home experience because they're working from home with family, with elders that they're caring for, with all of their animals, walking across their keyboard every day. So I think that, you know, I agree with Michael. We are probably not going to need as much real estate as we did before. We didn't need it before. We didn't have the argument or the foot to stand on to tell people they could still be successful and we could still be, you know, productive while working distributed. I think now there's an appetite for it, and we're seeing that. And the advantages it actually gives us is more access to better talent across the world. And so I think what we have to do is get the people thing right first, and workplace will figure itself out from there. And that we really, you know, it's a little bit more of a separation of how people work and where they work. And I'm excited to kind of see what happens over time and the technologies that we adopt or redevelop to help us manage our space better, right? Really looking at the data and being data driven in our decision making. And not that space isn't going to still be personal for people. I think we find a different way for people to connect and make it their own, while still being very effective and not sitting on, you know, 10, 20% vacancy in your portfolio, which costs you a lot of money.
Absolutely. I think respecting the time, I'm cutting the sessions short. So audience, please feel free to post your questions regarding earlier 2 sections, and we will take up last 10-15 minutes to discuss those questions as well. Moving on to the next section, the last section, which is technology, and which I think becomes really, really important for going forward. And I think I was just discussing yesterday that, let's say 70% of our portfolio or workforce comes back to the office, right? Even if we have a Zoom meeting like this with 5 to 6 people, 4 might be in the office, the 5th one might still be at home, right? So in any case, the technology usage is going to amplify times 3, times 4 or more because of these kind of situations. And navigating the 3 stages of, let's say, crisis management, the react, response, and recover, which stage would require the maximum technology integration, and how the data will be helping the organizations? Michael, if we could have some thoughts from you on this.
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting. When you think of technology, one of the things that we learn, you know, we have 250,000 people all over the world who do various jobs. One of the things you learn is, do people have the technology they need at home to actually work remotely? You know, we assume everyone has an iPhone, the latest iPhone, and everyone has all this great technology. You know, we found that a lot of our workforce didn't have a strong enough wireless connection at home. You know, something basic. And you think about the countries that we operate in, they're not all first world. And so I think one of the learnings was, or is our workforce able to work remotely effectively for a prolonged period of time? So that's number one. Number two, along with the technology, do people have the accessories and the furniture and the tools at home to work effectively over a long period of time? So, if you don't have the right chair, if you don't have the right desk, if you don't have the right space, a lot of people have very small apartments with children. So, making the assumption that everyone had, back in the U.S. or maybe the U.K., everyone had these big homes and the yards and so forth, but not everyone has that. And so making sure your workforce is equipped. Number two, I think the definition of resiliency is being unearthed in a way it's never been unearthed. So we have